Hey family, the baby is down and it's time to unwind, but I have a few thoughts that I want to share. I want to quickly beat my face and have a conversation. I feel like I want to share my thoughts on this topic with you guys, and honestly I don't know how many people are going to care, but I'm going to do this as a keepsake, as something to look back on when I have more kids, when I'm done having kids. Who knows? This is just my journey where I'm at, and it may be similar to some people. I guess I'll find out when this video is out. I'm gonna beat my face off camera, and by the time I come back on camera, it'll be time for us to have a conversation about motherhood, identity, and what that looks like in this season. Newsflash, I ended up filming these on completely different days, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it all the same. Bye. You know, most times people would say, make sure you discover yourself before you get married. Make sure you discover yourself before you're a mom. You know, all these things. Life doesn't always wait for us to be ready. That's one thing I've realized. No matter how much you plan, it doesn't always wait for you to be ready. I have now started to ask myself, like, what if instead of seeing motherhood as an interruption of finding myself, because that's one thing I've dealt with, the fact that I'm so young, 24 years of age, my frontal lobe is not even formed yet, and I'm a mom. Like, that is such a huge identity shift. I wanted to explore what it would be like if I stopped seeing early motherhood as an interruption to the process, but instead as part of the process. So in this video, I want to explore the tension between identity and responsibility. Like, what happens when life happens much faster than you expected, how to redefine becoming ourselves, whatever that means. I think as a society, we definitely have a bit of an issue with the whole thing of settling down and figuring it all out. We have a particular timeline that we say we need to get married, we need to have children, we need to, have a certain amount of money, we need to have certain assets. We have definitely gotten ourselves in this conundrum whereby we try to fit things that are non-linear into linear boxes, such as success, because different people come from different backgrounds, and for those reasons they have different opportunities and different shots at life, if you will. So how can you compare yourself to the next person on the street when you guys don't even have the same types of opportunities? So we find ourselves doing this whole thing that honestly doesn't really make sense, like when we think about it logically, but it's something that everyone does, so we just kind of follow through. The pressure to have it all figured out before settling down, what does that even mean? Because when does one ever really settle down in terms of their identity? When does one ever really figure it all out, when the idea of identity in itself is so multifaceted? Like, it can never really be based off of things that are always changing, because in that sense identity will always change. So it really stems from what we believe identity is. So according to the dictionary, identity is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Now, I just want to understand, like, how can you fixate constantly on being one thing when life is always changing, when your roles are always changing? So are we basing identity on our roles, or are we basing it on our circumstances? What even is that? Anyway, newsflash, life doesn't always follow a neat timeline, if you haven't noticed. With the economy, with things going on, like, life will not always be as we plan it. Many people are still trying to figure themselves out in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. And that's what we as a society have said is a time for a person to retire. I just think about Danessa Myricks and how she's almost 60 and now her makeup brand has popped off. Like, I don't know how long she spent trying to make that makeup brand what it is today, but one would have looked at her back in the day, if she was working on this in her 20s, her 30s, trying to get it off the ground, I might have been like, oh, time is running out. But who's to say that? Because now she's so popular on TikTok and so successful. Was she really late, or was it just not her time yet? Anyway, that's not even what I'm trying to talk about today. I want to talk about how motherhood has shifted perspectives, at least for me. Like, the idea of motherhood is so vast, and having experienced it firsthand myself, I have noticed that I am absolutely not who I used to be. And this is why I even found this conversation even relevant in the first place, because I am never going to be that girl again. And it's crazy, like, how can having a child make such a huge shift in your life? The old me honestly feels gone, and I had some moments where I had mourned that old version of me because I knew that she would never come back, and that even in itself is so life altering, because as a person, if you've known who you thought you were for 23 odd years and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not this person anymore, that does something to you mentally. Which is why I'm more like pushing this narrative that it's not necessarily possible for you to identify yourself in one season and use that as your defining factors for the rest of your life. I find that society has two different like notions. It's like, be a devoted mother, but also don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. What does that even mean? Does that mean make sure that you're still holding on to your old self? Or does that mean that you need to change entirely who you used to be or who you knew yourself as? So these are the questions that I'm asking myself. Like, I know this has definitely been something that I have recently struggled with. Like, who even am I? You know, outside of this little human, who even am I? And it's weird because she's only been here for like 3 months. So how has that altered my entire sense of self? Is it because every single day she demands for my attention in a way that makes it seem as if I am existing solely for her? Or is it because I just never had a solid identity to begin with? I think it's interesting, like motherhood and femininity as a whole, as a topic, because as a woman, like literally, even if you don't want kids, your body is set up in a way that reminds you that it has that function. And so it's very easy to fall into a trap or fall into that thought process that that is all I'm here for and that is my sole purpose in life. Now obviously we know that that's not the case, at least in my opinion that's not the case, but like it's very easy to fall into that trap because it's like that's physiologically, that is why your body does the things that it does. Like every month you're menstruating because your body is constantly reminding you like, hey, we need a child, you know. And it can really mess with your head sometimes when you're like, but I don't want a child, so why is my body doing this? If you do want a child and you do get the child, it's like, okay, is this all I'm made to do? I think there was a time earlier on in my postpartum journey that I started to realize that I was constantly putting myself last, like when it came to choosing rest or not choosing rest, and not because the option wasn't there, but more like I didn't feel like I deserved it. And I was like, why don't I feel like I deserve to rest even though I'm a mom? Even before I became a mom, I was somebody that was like, absolutely, rest is productive, you know. I used to champion that, like I used to wear it on my head. But now I'm a mom, it's more like I was almost shifting myself from that narrative. I was shifting myself from that narrative in a bid to sound like a more responsible mother, in a bid to sound more present. My question to myself now is, why can't responsibility and devotion as a mother coexist with self-care and prioritization of yourself as a mother? Is it because I feel like in that motherhood identity is a death to myself as a person and an entity? I think for that reason, I am trying to redefine knowing myself means, because the truth is that I'll never stop becoming. And that is beautiful because I believe that that is God's plan. Like he asks us to continually behold him that we may become more like him. And that leads me to where I'm going to go with this discussion of identity and how I'm going to find it. I feel like I just need to throw myself more into God and lose myself in God. And that's the main way that I will be able to actually find an identity that will stick, if that makes sense, an identity that I will be anchored in. I think that makes more sense. I feel like another thing that I want to do is also see motherhood as a catalyst for growth rather than a roadblock to my growth, because society really pushes this narrative that once you become a mother, your life changes and stops and makes it so much worse. But it has also made me so driven. It's made me more patient. It's made me more kind. So could it be that God was just trying to bring out a different version of me by making me a mother, a better version of me? Because the kinds of things that are coming out of this hardship are qualities that I have wanted to attain, but this season of my life is just kind of forcing me to attain those qualities. Aside from also immersing myself in the things of God to make sure that I am emerging as a secure person in God, some other things that I want to do to make sure that I'm actually holding on to my identity and not getting lost in motherhood, because I feel like there's a balance. Like there's sacrifice in motherhood, yes, but you cannot necessarily neglect yourself or lose yourself in that. If not, you will not be able to show up for your child in the first place. That's something I've started to realize. I want to be more intentional about caring for myself every single day, no matter what it looks like, whether it's just watching a show for 30 minutes, if it's praying, if it's taking a walk, you know, if it's just taking a moment to be silent and be by myself. Whatever self-care looks like in that moment for me is what I want to start to do. I also want to find more mom friends, because I feel like community is a huge part of this conversation, whereby, like, at least for me, I find that sometimes I just want to turn my brain off, and I feel like I can do that best with friends. And I feel like even more so mom friends that also understand like the season of life, that would be so amazing, I think, for my mental health. And that's something I want to start to do more as well. I also want to give myself grace to know that it's okay for me to evolve. It's okay if I'm not the girl I used to be before I had a baby, because I can never be that girl anymore. I literally birthed a whole human being from my body. There is no going back, and that is totally okay. And like I said, like, those moments of hardship have brought forth a new type of Uzoma, and I'm here for it. I'm here for her. I love her. Granted, it's not always an easy process. It's not always easy to accept. Like, sometimes I look at my body, I'm like, who is she? But other days I'm like, wow, I love this new me. So it's definitely something that I found that I need to ease into and give myself more grace to understand. So I want to throw it back to you guys. Have there been any life changes that have made you question your identity, especially new moms out there? I want to know like what your experience has been with this. Let me know if you guys have experienced the same like limbo of not understanding your identity, but also just like trying to get with the program in terms of your new life. I think in conclusion, the takeaway would be you don't have to find yourself before becoming a mom, because you're going to change when you become a mom. And most importantly, for me at least, is finding myself, finding my identity in Christ, because that's the only constant in life anyway. But yeah, let me know guys if you enjoy these types of videos. If you want to talk more on more complex topics, I would be happy and open to do that. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be there waiting for you guys. All right, take care. Bye.